Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the Foxborough Board of Selectmen July 24th meeting. I'll go over the agenda briefly. At 7 o'clock, we have citizens' input. At 7:05, the town planner, Sharon Wasson, and the planning board are going to join us to talk about 4 items: the EPA grant, acceptance of the EPA grant, the housing production plan, and the authorize the chairman to sign the South Coast Rail application. Public hearing to entertain the transfer of all alcohol restaurant license from MJ Holdings to D&N Corporate, otherwise known as Christina's Fireside Grill. We have a selectmen's update and an update on the town and the craft committee efforts over the last couple weeks. 7:45. We're going to update everybody and hopefully vote in the open meeting law remote participation bylaw that was passed last year. 8 o'clock, the town manager is going to review with us his and our goals and objectives. At 8:30, the Water and Sewer Board will join us for the DPW reorganization discussion. 8:45, we're going to have a discussion on the selectmen participating in the collective bargaining process, and there's a whole dozen or so action items. So we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Mark, do you want to join us, lead us today?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so it being a little after 7, we'll start with citizens' input. So if anyone wants to say anything, if they can come to the microphone, and for the record, just introduce yourself.
Hi, how you doing? AJ Dooley, 75 Ridge Road in Foxborough, and also the owner of Dooley Disposal. So over the last couple of weeks, obviously you understand what's been going on, but I have just one question that I really need to have answered for myself and for the residents in town. And that is, if a resident does not opt out of the trash with the town, and Russell Disposal picks up a Foxborough resident's trash, are they then contractually obligated to pay Russell? That is my question. And with that answered, I will leave.
I saw this coming. I can take a shot at it, but I'll refer to Kevin.
Sure.
You've been dealing with the contracts, both the past and the present.
Okay. So here's the deal. The town, prior to the start of this contract on August 1, was the collection agent. The town collected money from homeowners and then paid it to the vendor who was picking up trash. So we had to maintain a list of who was legally being picked up and who wasn't in order to bill them correctly and make sure that payment got transferred to the vendor. We are no longer in that business as of August 1st. We've taken us out of that business and transferred the responsibility for collection and, more importantly, for collecting receivables and overdues directly to the vendor. Because, frankly, why should the taxpayers of Foxborough pay for people who don't pay their bills on time? And we were bearing a substantial cost. So we transferred that liability. Now, for the new vendor on August 1st to know who he is supposed to pick up, we have to give him that computerized list of all the people in town who were on the old contract. And that was in the RFP that we issued publicly to all those vendors. Now, if a resident doesn't tell somebody, either the new town contractor, Russell, or the town, that they no longer want that service and they've opted for Dooley or any of the other competitors, then neither the vendor nor the town has any way to know that they've chosen a new vendor, in which case that homeowner is going to get 2 bills. He's going to get a bill from the current town-awarded contractor because that person thinks they still want the service, and they're going to get a bill from whoever they're actually decided that they want to have pick up their trash. And are they liable for both? I don't know. It's not a town matter anymore. It's strictly between the private contractors. Common sense would say that if somebody doesn't want the town vendor to pick them up anymore, just do exactly what they've been told to do. In a number of publications that we've put out, call Town Hall, the Treasurer's Office, say I don't want to be picked up by the town vendor. Great, take them off the list, and they can be picked up by whoever they want. Or call the vendor directly. My understanding is he sent a letter to all 3,800 people who appear on the town list, and he said to them, if you don't want us to pick you up, call us and tell us. Nothing could be simpler. If people decide that they are going to sign up with a new vendor and they don't call us and they don't call the town contractor, then they are running the risk of getting two bills. And are they liable? I don't know. But I know what I'd do. I'd do what I was advised to do. I'd call Russell when I got that letter, and I'd say, yep, I want to be on your list, or no, I don't. But I wouldn't play games with this because, playing games with it, not revealing who you want to pick you up is only going to lead to a problem for you, the homeowner. It's not a problem for the town. And the town, by the way, is not going to get involved in a dispute between two private contractors. It is not our business. As of August 1st, the town is out of the business and the private contractors are in the business. And that's the way it should have been all along, frankly. I don't know why the town ever became the remitting agent. It's a poor situation that we can't find any communities that even do that. So,
Kevin, for the record, do we have the town treasurer's number so Frank can...
Yeah.
well, here's the problem. The service starts on August 1st.
Yep.
And all the information that we already put out through the paper twice, that the vendor put out in a letter to every single homeowner, it had a deadline by which you had to call here and notify us. That deadline is now passed. We have turned the computerized list over to the vendor as of, I think, yesterday.
Okay. So now there is no
I think yesterday.
calling. to
Well,
treasurer's
Might be as
office.
of
I don't-
might be as of today. Now, you can still call the vendor and let him know, but you can't let us know anymore. We've already turned the list over.
And for the townspeople that Frank is so
mess.
generously going to write about.
Frank's
what was
been very good
what was
about
the
it. He's
number
written this
that we should
repeatedly.
call?
And
What's the
So
number?
you're saying not for folks not to bother calling town hall?
right, because as of today,
Because
I'm sorry.
nowhere on this, I'm just saying, there's
Do I
no
stand
place
cor-
on here that it says to call Russell if you do not want their services.
safest,
Or a deadline.
the safest.
Let me interrupt you both for a second. If Randy's been kind of spearheading this on behalf of the DPW for the last several months.
I'm just going to answer the simple question that, up until the 31st, we're still in the business. And so residents who do want to discontinue the town-sponsored vendor can call the number that they've always been calling, 508-543-1224. They can call that number up to the 31st, or since, as Kevin has stated correctly, we have turned the list over to the new vendor, they can call the new vendor as well. So they call either number up to the 31st, and after the 31st, they need to call Russell.
Okay, thanks.
And Linda, do you have Russell's number there? Just
Well, it's on the letter that everybody got, but
because Frank can put it in the paper, it might make it a little easier. Some people
Frank, you'll
can't.
put that again in the paper. I realize we've done it a couple of times, but it seems like that there's a discrepancy by quite a few people, so we want to make sure that, Russell starts off right, So, did you get this letter in the mail? I'm sure you did, so you want to just make sure you put his number.
Did I answer your question, AJ?
You did. And also, I just want to let it be known, I don't know if you know, but I tried bringing up a list of the people that have...
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with Randy, and he did a great job describing to me of why they wouldn't accept the list. I understand that. Thank you. But I was just trying to do common courtesy
Sure.
and say, so there's not problems, because there's going to be problems. And And I want to cut them down, so it's going to less headaches for me. It's going to have less headaches for him. It's going to have less headaches for the town. You guys can say you guys are out of the business, but it's not like your phone's going to be blocked to anyone who wants to ask you something about town trash. They're still going to get through. You're still going to get asked a question. So
Yeah. AJ brought a list up, what he's talking
Still
about.
get in contact.
He brought
I'd
a
like to
list
come up
up
and talk
to
to
the
you.
treasurer's office of people that he said had called him and wanted to sign up with him and had gone off the town service. I had instructed the finance department not to accept that list because it would be akin to Comcast giving us a list and saying, hey, here's everybody who's off Verizon, sign them up with us. Obviously, we cannot get in the middle of a competitive relationship, so we told AJ, tell those folks to do what we've told them. Call us personally,
And we have
or
been
call
doing
the
that.
vendor, and they're doing that. And
We have been now. I
right.
mean, we didn't from the beginning because I felt my way about it, but I just want it to be easier, and we are telling everyone to contact the town.
Good.
So I just needed to ask for the people. There are going to be some people who don't make the phone call, and I just want to protect my customers as well. Okay.
James, is that me?
Excuse me?
Sure.
You can all make a phone call, but it's not like an email where you have a response and it's something that backs up that you made the cancellation. Phone calls don't work. Nobody's going to say, hey, all right, Mark Sullivan called Russell. I called it this day. I write it down. They say, okay, Mr. Sullivan, thank you.
Yeah.
And then they still do it. I'm just using me for an example. Then there's no confirmation.
There is.
Okay. How?
Sure.
It's actually a cancellation form. So if you were to come to the window here at the collector's office, you'd actually fill out that form. We do take the cancellations over the phone, and if you take them over the phone, they're actually filling out the form. So there is a record.
Okay, but I thought it was too late to call. Randy.
No, it's
I
not.
just said a few minutes ago.
Said it
on
not.
Clarification.
The 31st.
To the 31st.
You
Okay.
can call right up to that day. And I guess what we'll do is we'll take them, Randy, we'll take them, and we'll phone call them into Russell, because we can't amend the list at that point. Okay.
Last week, I came up here on either Thursday or I think it was either Wednesday or Thursday, and I asked for a cancellation form. I was going to scan it and email it out to all my customers, and they told me that they do not have a cancellation form. So that is something that you guys have adapted in the last couple of days. So
Of necessity.
that was
Yep.
a good idea to do.
Of necessity, yep.
That would make it easier.
The good news, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, the winners in this is the public, because what we set out to do is create a competitive environment so that the homeowners the consumer would be the winners in this. And I don't think we ever quite expected it would be so competitive, but that's a good thing, because what the homeowner's getting is a better deal, whoever they go with, than they would have been paying 5 years from now under the old contract. So we've effected a very good result for the homeowners, and it is a little confusing, but I'm sure a month from now, everybody will have slid into the new, and they'll be perfectly fine, and, it'll be great. But, there's some pains when you're doing this sort of a change with vendors going, and so there'll probably be a few people caught in the sieve, but hopefully we'll minimize it.
Okay. And I'd like to thank you guys for listening to me. And I'd just like to make one comment on what you did, because you kind of opened the door for me there. And that was, I think that you did bring a competitive environment as far as the price. And I do think the town's going to get a great price. But I do think that I've grown up in this town my whole entire life. And growing up here, the great thing about Foxborough was that it was a small town. And, we had the small town attitude. And I think that you guys made a mistake hiring someone from the other side of the
Oh,
bridge.
come on, stop,
All right,
stop,
we're
stop, stop. Way out of line.
Thank you, AJ.
apologize.
Stop.
I apologize.
Stop.
I apologize.
That's it.
Randy, you don't have to respond to that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Speaking of August 1st, trash change, August 1st is also your tax bills are due. I was asked to remind everybody, so you get a double bonus on August 1st, which is Wednesday. All right, anyone else on citizens' input? All right, with that, if the planning board wanted to come up to the table with Sharon and discuss the EPA and Housing Authority plan. I have to grab a couple extra chairs. Welcome, thank you for coming. So we do have quite a thick
You must have
section in our
something.
packet, but I think I'll just turn it over to Sharon or the chairman of the planning board, however you want to do that.
Oh, I'm the boss today. Thank you, Mr. Weinfeld. The Planning Board prepared and submitted a grant to the EPA for their Sustainable Communities Consortium grant, and we were one of 5 towns that were chosen. So I was asked to come and describe a little bit about what it is. We propose to have a parking workshop that looks at available parking and where there might be additional parking in the downtown, specifically working with the library to try and identify some solutions for their employee parking. It's going to look at our parking ratio requirements in the zoning, and the final piece will be a workshop where we can share what we learned with the rest of the folks in Foxborough. So it was very competitive. We were thrilled to have been selected, and I was told to come and describe it and ask you guys to accept that grant.
Okay, thank you. I'll just speak for just a minute. I mean, I read through this. It was very impressive. What I liked about it, it was specific to Foxborough. All the other towns, Maynard got one, and that was for redevelopment of an asset they have. Another town got one. It was for a rail system. So it was. This is something that I don't think they just gave the money and said, do what you want. It was specific. Right. And I know you guys spent a lot of time working towards this, and I appreciate that. So let's open up to the board if there's any comments.
No, just thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Great work.
Yeah.
Planning board must have something to add.
I'm just very happy. I mean, Sharon, it's been one of Sharon's great strengths is finding these opportunities for our town and going after them. She's been very successful at getting them for us, and we're very pleased.
And it's comes at a good time as well, with respect to the master plan and the people that are involved with downtown.
Right.
So this is a huge piece to a puzzle
Right.
that was brought up and discussed over and over at the master planning, but now there's a tool to get there.
Right.
There's no
do
truth to the
just do
rumor there's going to be a parking garage under the common, so it's not that way.
Did you see it this weekend?
So we should do a motion to accept, or not?
Well, I certainly don't mind doing that, but this was signed, this contract was signed already on July 11th by our town manager. So we can make a motion to accept the contract that was already signed. Correct?
We don't have to if you don't want to.
No,
It's fine.
I think that goes a long way. So I'll entertain a motion to accept the grant as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Sharon.
5-0. Thank you. Thank you all.
So item 3 was the housing production plan, and you guys were good enough to attend a joint meeting with the planning board on the 28th of June. Went through the plan with the MAPC staff and made a lot of suggestions. They made corrections and additions to the plan. They also sent us information on how to set up a municipal housing trust, which was one of the ideas that was brought out through their plan, and one of the things that the tools that the planning board is specifically looking for to deal with the situation at Chestnut Green. So I wanted to know if you have formed an opinion and are willing to adopt that plan. I've recommended adoption to the planning board for what that's worth.
Tonight it's worth a lot.
It's worth a lot, huh?
Well, Jimmy wasn't here for that meeting, so would you want to update him on what the trust is all about and everything? Because I kind of gave him a brief, but...
Right. I wrote a quick one-page memo. A municipal housing trust is a tool that enables the town to accept gifts or grants of money for the purposes of affordable and subsidized housing as well as what's called workforce housing for people earning above low income, but certainly not market rate housing. And it's used in the city of Boston, for example, has a linkage program where every new housing development must have a minimum percentage of affordable housing. And if they don't build it in the same unit, they pay or donate other units to the housing trust. It's a tool that will enable the town to accept land, money, dwelling units, or whatever in lieu of having built in place. The state hospital reuse plan requires that 20% of the housing be affordable. And we're hearing from the developers, various of the developers involved in the entire Chestnut Green project, that that's a problem. In our housing production plan, we in fact found that the vast majority of affordable housing stock that the town has is in that immediate area. And consistent through the housing plan and previous work, the community, the CAS, the town did in the 90s, and the community development plan that they did in the early 2000s so they could apply for state grants, was the idea that we wanted affordable housing throughout town. And we didn't want it to be stigmatized or identified as affordable housing. It should look like a house in a neighborhood that anyone could live in. And so the idea of working with some of the Chestnut Green developers to find other solutions for their affordable housing requirements, the trust is a really powerful tool in making that happen.
Who would be the trustees?
The chairman of the Board of Selectmen appoints those trustees, and at his discretion it can be ex officios, it can be members of boards, it can be citizens. The board has a minimum of 5 members. It can be more. And as I noted in the memo, different towns require permission of the selectmen to spend money, permission of the town meeting to borrow money, so it's really customized to your town. But it's a mechanism that enables you to accept these gifts for the purposes of affordable housing. So the board has to be thought about, the powers of the board have to be thought about, the mechanics of how they do business and how they maintain their books, for lack of better words, have to be thought about. Requires town meeting action to create.
It's just a simple majority at town meeting.
A simple majority at town meeting to create such a trust.
And it just, so there's no confusion, a lot of towns have trusts set up, but they also have the Preservation Act.
The Community Preservation Act.
If the
right.
town would entertain going into a Preservation Act, which is if you sell up a parcel of land, a certain percentage goes to this.
Right,
That's
right.
not what we're talking about here.
No.
If that's set up, that would go into this, but they're
That
totally
could go
treated
into
separate.
it,
Yeah.
right.
So this is donations.
This is donations,
mitigation
payment
money.
in lieu of
yeah.
mitigation money, conceivably memorial gifts or people who wanted to contribute something to the community.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a vehicle for those sorts of actions.
Okay. And you've already met on this with your board and you've endorsed it?
We're scheduled to adopt it on Thursday night.
Okay.
We didn't receive the final plan until after our last meeting,
Mm-hmm.
so I wanted to give the board time to read all the information.
But the board was, I believe all our members were there, that the board was uniformly pretty enthusiastic about the concept of developing a trust and working at those details out, with the Board of Selectmen and town meeting.
So this plan that we have in front of us, the Foxborough Housing Production Plan on June 2012, this is the final?
That is the final
Final
plan.
plan, okay. Discussion from the board?
Would we adopt the plan of the board if we were to make the motion to vote on adopting this, to start the trust? Will we make the motion based on planning board's approval? Since we're kind of jumping the gun, we're ahead of their vote.
Well, just for clarification, you're adopting more than just a trust. You're adopting the state's recommended housing plan for the community of Foxborough.
I thought right now we're just discussing the trust. That's a separate issue, correct?
I thought it
Well,
was
no,
to
you just
adopt the-
asked Sharon to clarify for Sharon
Yeah.
that particular.
Would that be two separate votes, Sharon?
It would be two separate, I believe it would be two separate votes. I also believe you don't have to take a position on the housing trust tonight.
Right.
It
you
was
guys
one of the
do it first.
informational things that the people from MAPC sent along with the final plan for the town's consideration.
During the presentation, we heard about the trust. We realized the town didn't have one, and we thought it'd be a good vehicle because we've been working with the housing authority through the housing plan. And a clarification on the plan itself. Just because we adopt it doesn't make it happen. There's things that'll have to be done as you read through the thing,
Right.
And it's going to be a long process. But if we at least adopt it, we have a vehicle to work with that we may or may not reach the conclusion and get the whole thing done, but it's well on the way to do what we need to do.
I
So
think that they should. I think that these folks should vote it in first before we do. I wouldn't mind doing the, motion for the chairman to do the trust.
Well, actually, that's not on the agenda tonight, though. The three things that are on there is the EPA grant, which we've accepted, the housing production plan, which it sounds like
Oh, and
maybe
it's
we want
just
to
for you
hold
to
off.
authorize the South Coast
Yeah.
Rail.
Yeah,
And
that's
they
South
authorize the
Road.
South Coast
We'll
Rail.
Yeah.
put them both off
So we'll
until
come back,
after.
we'll come out at the next meeting, yeah.
That way we get to see you again.
All comfortable with that?
I think you sense our consensus is.
that's fine.
And I understand the reason
I
you
didn't
want to
know,
wait.
but is it too premature for us to, that's why I was trying to save the agenda a little bit. I mean, if we could vote to accept the plan on condition that the planning board does, I think that would work also.
I think the problem with that, because you guys, you're not just going to rubber stamp it. If this changes, why don't you
Right.
do your vote, whatever,
Yeah.
codify the
Sure.
changes,
Okay.
and then we'll accept that one.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And if you were under a deadline or something, I'd say we might think differently, but I don't think there's any urgency over the next month to get this done.
Okay?
That's it?
Mr. Chairman? I just wanted to note to the board's attention, and probably even more so for the public, the planning board and Sharon are really doing an extraordinary amount of work with respect to future planning. I have never in my career worked with a more proactive planning board and town planner. The amount of work they're pushing out in terms of planning for this community's future is really quite extraordinary. Every time I turn around, Sharon's telling me about a new grant that they're going after or that they just got. The number of different areas that they're looking at, the downtown, Route 1, the overall community, is absolutely astounding. This is really an extraordinary effort they're making. And most towns, I'm going to tell you, planning boards are purely reactive boards. They never do planning, despite their name, because they're always reacting to subdivision applications and Form As, and they never get around to planning. And this planning board and this planner are really doing an extraordinary job, and I hope the board and the public is aware of that, because it's very, very special what's going on here, believe me. Nice job.
Very much appreciated.
Yes, it is.
And so lastly, we got the housing production plan funded by South Coast Rail last year. This year, we wanted to apply for funds to update the zoning for the downtown. I prepared a grant application. The state requires that the chairman of the board of selectmen sign that grant. And I believe you had copies of that. That is due July the 31st. So if you could vote on that this evening, I would be very grateful.
Very good. And you guys all read that in your packets? Any comments or motions on that?
No, I just say go get 'em, Sharon. You're just having at it. If you can come up with 7.5 for water and sewer, then would be much appreciated too. So keep flipping through those pages and looking for it. I think it's awesome.
So is there a motion?
I move that we authorize the chairman to sign the South Coast Rail application.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, Pauline?
And lastly, we're wrapping up the master plan on September the 13th. Place to be determined. And we'll look forward to seeing you all then.
Is that a summary of the other two meetings and kind of a presentation, or are you looking for more public input?
We're looking for more public input. We thought if it was just a PowerPoint of what's happened, nobody would want to come. But we really want to think about Route 1 and think about transportation challenges in the town. So we're continuing to do work on those issues, and that'll be, I believe, the primary substance of that meeting.
Okay, and that's Thursday night, the 13th of
Thursday
September.
night, the 13th.
Excellent. Okay, thank you all for coming.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
We're good.
Okay, I found the agenda. Just can't keep up with the paperwork. That's all right, thank you.
Public hearing, okay.
You're going to read something, right? Okay. So at 7:15, we had a public hearing. It's 7:30, so we can read the legal notice, if you would, Lorraine.
Okay. The Board of Selectmen of the Town of Foxborough, acting as the local licensing authority pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 138, will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, July 24th, 2012, at 7:15 p.m. in the Andrew A. Galla Jr. Meeting Room, 40 South Street, Foxborough, Massachusetts, on application for transfer of license of an annual all-alcoholic beverages restaurant license from MJ Holding Corporation to D&N Corporation, 2 Washington Street, Foxborough, Massachusetts. Manager Nicholas Panagopoulos. Premises is first-floor restaurant with dining areas and function facility. All interested persons are invited to attend the hearing. Board of Selectmen, Foxborough, Massachusetts.
And at this time, I'd invite any representatives from D&N Corporation. Christina's. Kevin, do we have representation on our side?
Oh, yeah, Lou, I'm sorry. Ginny, have you met Lou?
No.
I don't think so. Ginny's newsletter. Lou is special counsel for licensing. I know the rest of the board knows.
Hey, Lou. I'm sorry, yeah, if you want, you feel comfortable just coming to the table. So we are, just so you know, we are live video on cable, and also if you could just speak into the microphone so people can hear you as well.
Attorney Dean Plakius, and I'm here representing the proposed transferee, D&N Corporation, and the manager, Nicholas Panagopoulos. And this petition to transfer this license has come about actually as the culmination of a dispute between the prior licensee, MJ Holdings, and the landlord, D&N Realty Trust, and D&N Corporation. That's not a party to the litigation, but that has been resolved is playing itself out in a Superior Court action. The result is that the corporation, MJ Holdings, is no longer in possession of the premises by court decree, and D&N is restored to the premises as the operator there. The current licensee is MJ Holdings. They're operating under a license agreement between D&N and MJ Holdings, a temporary license agreement effective July 1st until this license is transferred. The consent decree entered by the Norfolk Superior Court has required that the parties negotiate in good faith the transfer of the license to D&N Corporation, not to anyone else, and to accomplish that within 60 days. We have relied on corporate authorities from MJ Holdings pursuant to a vote and of MJ Holdings to transfer the license to D&N Corporation. D&N Corporation here is trying to do the right thing for the town of Foxborough, and for those people who've made commitments that MJ Holdings has made commitments to hold functions at this facility. DNN has been operating responsibly in this location since 73 or 71 originally, and it was in the year 2000 that the license was transferred to MJ Holdings and to Mike and Tasha and subsequent owners and partners operating under MJ Holdings. DNN is really the proper, a proper licensee to operate in this location, as they've done so over various years. So we are trying to accomplish what the court has requested and ordered to be accomplished here. So we're looking for the board's consent to this transfer of the license today.
So what we have in our packet is the full application, which we've all looked at. Can I hear from our counsel?
Yeah, do you have the amended application? Does the board have that?
We have the one that was dated July 24th.
Yeah,
today.
that's an amended petition for transfer of ownership. There's some discrepancies in the ownership, which is on file with the town, and what is was in the original application. This amended reflects the original ownership and officers that was approved in 2000 when it was originally approved.
So I'm sorry, I'm not following. We have an application that has, I think it was 50%, 50%.
No, the amended this is the amended one.
Why don't I hop in a little? I got a call last week to take a look at this, and the application that was filed to bring about the hearing is the one that has 250% shareholders.
Right, that is erroneous.
And
okay.
I think what happened here was that in 2000 there were 3 shareholders, and 2 of them had 950 shares, and 1 of them had 100 shares. Over the years, the corporate members and shareholders made changes to the corporate structure, to their officers, directors, and shareholders, and they did it through various agreements, but they never got the approval of this board or the ABCC. And I think there may have been 3 or 4 different transactions that came about that ended up with the present structure, at least on the original application, they had a 50-50 shareholder. Every change of officer, director, or shareholder of a corporation that holds a liquor license has to come before this board for approval and the ABCC. Because obviously there are certain reasons why. Certain felons can't own liquor licenses, so you can't be changing stock without an examination of whether or not these people are. Now, I'm not saying anyone here is a felon. I'm just saying that you have to come before you. Certain classes are like you can't hold a package store license and a pouring license. There are all kinds of reasons why you have to examine the ownership of every license, and the ABCC does query checks on all these changes too. Also, every time there's a change that originates here and goes to the ABCC, DOR gets involved to clear whether all taxes are being paid. Division of Employment Security does the same thing. All those things happen for a reason, and unfortunately here, and I'm not sure what went wrong, but many changes were made without any approvals. So, when I saw the application that had been filed that didn't match the town's records or the ABCC records, I told Mr. Plakius that I didn't think this application was in proper form. Even though a lot's happened in between, the only application this board can consider is a transfer from the record holders to the proposed holders. So he amended the application to reflect what your papers reflect, and that's really the original structure of the corporation back in 2000. So having said that, with the amended application, it's at least in proper form. You can now approve the transfer if you desire to approve it. Before you could even really consider it, because the people on the application were really not the owners as far as you're concerned, and they really weren't the directors or treasurer or whatever their office purported to be. Now, having said that, the people who claim an ownership may have some rights, either monetarily, financially, or in equity, that a court may well be able to enforce. You can't enforce those rights here. You can only look at the license as it is and as it should be. So what I'm telling you is you're in proper form, at least. At least the transferor and the transferee match up. And if all other things are considered and you find it appropriate, you can make the transfer, where you couldn't have made it before.
Yeah, just clarification, the paperwork that I have has the 50%, 50%. You said it's been amended.
You should have a new,
That was
This is the one that we got this evening.
Is that the
today.
one that was attached to this letter?
No,
Did you get the new
no,
one?
this, Chris gave us this.
Oh, when we first walked in?
Before,
Okay.
yeah.
It's in here somewhere.
I think it's right on the,
Here's your copy.
That's it, okay. So that's the 950, 951.
That's
Okay.
the original structure.
that's how you originally, or that's how the board originally approved the transfer to, is it MJ Holdings? Yeah, to MJ Holdings. That was the original structure, and there have been no applications to this board to alter that structure.
Okay.
Now, I do want to add that on July 25th, 2000, this board also approved a pledge of this license to D&N Corporation. So D&N has an interest in this, it's a security interest in this license, and always has been. So we are a party in interest to this transfer as well.
Okay.
James, may I ask a question?
Sure, Mark.
Lou, if all this has happened so many times, and that basically you're trying to tell me they've been holding a liquor license improperly, serving alcohol for how many years?
I guess 12.
So there's...
I mean, well, I don't know about, I don't know when the first, it started in 2000. Whenever the first change was made, without your approval, that was at least a violation of the terms of their license.
Okay, so
This
there's-
board or the ABCC could actually have
See,
taken action.
so I'm saying, so now it's come to light. How many violations do you see?
It could be 10. I don't know.
10 violations.
Could be. I don't know. There's an awful lot of
You
changes.
see possibly 10 violations in here in a
There's a
liquor
lot of them,
license
yes.
that's been being used in the town of Foxborough.
Yes.
And nobody's brought this to our attention or the ABC's attention. Nobody's caught it. So we're supposed to, I'm looking for your guidance
No,
here.
I'm not telling you should transfer the
No,
license.
I'm not saying.
All I'm telling you is that when I first looked at the file, it was improper, the application was improper, and you could not transfer it based upon the application. It's at least in proper form now.
Proper form.
That's all.
So basically, operating without a alcohol license for
12 years.
12 years.
Or something short of 12
So
years.
now, will the ABCC have something to say about this?
If the ABCC had gotten wind of this, my guess is...
They have now.
Which they will, probably.
Correct.
They probably haven't yet, but they probably will. They could, I mean, as a practical matter, and I'm not speaking for them, they may say, okay, at least it's straightened out. They might let it go through. You could come up against an investigator or an official at the ABC. They'll say, this is outrageous, and we're going to do
Sanction
We're going to do
fine.
something. We're going to, to haul them in, have a hearing, suspend the license. I don't know what they would do. I've seen both happen.
Mm-hmm.
I've had clients who have had a problem over the years, and they've held a hearing on it, where they got wind of it. They may not.
Well, it's just,
We're really here to cure these violations, and it sounds like there have been some violations, but they go away on the transfer to a responsible owner.
yeah,
An operator. I'm not sure.
fantastic.
Anyone else on the board? Questions?
That was my question. If this being a proper application, if it is transferred, then that eliminates that situation where the ABCC would take action.
Well, if you approve the
Against the
transfer,
new
if you
holder.
approve the transfer and the commission approves the transfer, then the new transferee would be the lawful owner of the license. Everything would be from that point forward would be fine. It would not wipe out the prior problems if someone wanted to pursue it.
But the prior problems in format would not would that affect the ABCC's approval consideration?
They may choose to
Of our-
not, they may
if
choose
we
to
were to
not
approve
approve
it.
it.
Okay.
They may, but I don't know.
Okay.
Is there anyone else from the board? 1 second, Kevin.
No, yeah.
Kevin?
Question for counsel from Spanagopoulos through the board. So what I'm looking at here is the original, which matches the town record, showing a 50% interest held by Mr. Intaccia and a 50% interest held by Mrs. Spinazzola.
No, that's not what the town records reflect.
Town records reflect this.
I'm sorry. Delete. The original is this. The new one reflects this 50-50 ownership. So, presumably, this is, despite the fact that this has never been filed, the change of ownership, this represents what your client's intention was?
No, I cannot represent that. I do not represent MJ
Okay.
Holdings.
So here's the dilemma for the board. The president of this corporation, under the new amended petition for transfer of ownership, is, or was, I should say, the original president from some 12 years ago?
Yes, Mike Untoshin.
So here is the disturbing part. The president of the corporation to whom you are being asked to transfer the license is the same person who, over the course of 12 years, has failed to notify the board of all these various corporate changes?
No.
Transferring it from him.
From him.
From him.
From Mike Untoshin to my client, Nicholas Panagopoulos, who has responsibly operated a license in Foxborough for over 30 years.
Okay, Mr. Intaccia was the president for these
Was the
past
prior
12
president,
years.
correct.
Okay. So he is the person who is responsible for the failure to notify the board properly?
Absolutely. And the board's free to pursue him and sanction him for prior violations under this license. But to hold up the transfer of the license is punishing responsible ownership in a viable business in the town of Foxborough for some, poor operator.
Well,
And how,
mismanaged.
once the board,
the board has here
Right.
against Diane Tosher is once it transfers the license, can't do
we
anything.
we have no,
For the ABCC.
so
maybe
why
something.
should the Board of Selectmen essentially reward Mr. Intaccia by agreeing to a transfer where potentially there's remuneration involved, assets, whatever, and recognize the fact that he utterly failed to properly disclose to this town for over a decade the correct ownership of this corporation? And how does the board know that during that 12-year period that completely improper persons were not running that organization?
I can't answer that because I have no knowledge of, what.
Well, I would suggest, Mr. Chairman of the board, that
You're stealing my thunder, Kevin.
that you take this under advisement and allow council some time to explore this a little more deeply, because frankly, I don't know and this is information that has just arrived tonight, and I apologize to the board that we didn't know this sooner. I think Lou has been trying very hard to get the various parties to provide a complete revelation of the facts. So I'm sorry that we weren't able to get all this in front of you more timely, but I think under the circumstances, my recommendation to the board would be to give our council, a little more time to explore this, because frankly, I don't see how the board can responsibly transfer this license knowing that there could be financial gain to the president of a corporation who acted in a fantastically irresponsible manner for over a decade. I don't see how you can do it. Moreover, I think the licensing authority would look a little bit ridiculous to ABCC when they review this. Like, what are you people doing there in Foxborough, transferring this? And I'm just incredulous hearing this, and I think this really needs a little more exploration and proper fact set put in front of the board.
James, if I could. To add to Kevin, the board could even seize the license at this point because there's been multiple violations. And you know the strike four rule, and you gave precedents with many other community businesses in the community where you would definitely be in conflict with. So I think the advice is adequate and correct. But I also want to know is there'd be fines and other things that would be applicable, and who's paying Lou to clean up this mess? Why are we, the town of Foxborough, paying to clean up this mess? Where any kind of legal counsel or any other bills from whatever service needed to clean up this mess should not be put on the town of Foxborough.
My only question is, should the license at this point, because it's not being used, should it come back to the town anyway? And then we can separately deal with awarding it to him without a transfer type of thing?
You'd have to give notice in a hearing on that.
Right, I'm not saying about this evening, but I'm saying that would be clearer in case something comes up that we want to retract with someone, but so it comes back to us, and then it will just be the town speaking to Mr. P. I don't know, is that...
It's a good point, Linda. Absolutely. And the other thing, too, is, though, whatever the board decides to do here, there is a business that has, I'm sure, weddings, I think I've seen in the future on every page of the paper, everything else. Does the town hold a license, suspend a license immediately right now? Does this board suspend a license?
I don't think we can do that
Oh,
right
yeah,
now.
we can.
Well, I think you probably should give notice in the hearing if you...
A notice of the hearing, but within, exactly, but I'm trying to work with these people here to let them operate to a certain point until...
Are they operating now?
Yes.
Oh, they are?
They're operating, yes. My client, Nick Panagopoulos, is, in possession of it, and we have Mike and Tasha, the manager of the license, under Nick's direction, running these functions. But the prior management team is no longer there.
So, yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to, there's a court order in this packet that states that the license will revert back to the town effective August 1st?
If there is no agreement to transfer the license between MJ and DNN, then it would revert to the town on August 1st, which is 60 days from the consent decree. That's correct.
So,
if that's the case, then that's the case.
I guess my question is, what is the barrier to transferring today, a week and a half before that, as opposed to it happening through that order?
I think what he's saying is weddings and things that...
There's business that's been booked and deposits have been made to the prior management team, and they are summer. I don't aware of the day-to-day operations, but I know this summer going forward. There's one this Saturday night, large party of 200 people, wedding. They have been paid
I'm just thinking that
deposit, and that's going forward.
By permitting the transfer, the business is allowed to continue to operate.
Well, even if you approved it tonight, it would take probably a month to get approved anyway, but the process would move forward more quickly.
Jenny?
From what I understand, in order to do this transfer, you'd have to settle any liabilities. And from my understanding, the town is owed almost $10,000 in police details.
That's correct.
So I wouldn't do anything until the town of Foxborough receives a check for whatever that amount is, almost $10,000. I think that should be settled first before we do anything else.
Kevin?
Two comments. First, at the time that the transfer was filed or thereabouts, Mr. Panagopoulos, and I think the information is in here, I just want to highlight it, in fairness to Mr. Panagopoulos, came in and paid property taxes, personal property taxes, and water bills in the vicinity of $70,000, I believe. Which
to the town of Foxborough, Mr. Panagopoulos came and voluntarily paid $20,000 in back past due water bills, which MJ had not paid, and personal property taxes of MJ Holdings to clear this license here. He also paid $84,000 of MJ Holdings meals tax liability with the DOR 1 day prior to DOR seizing the license.
Thank you.
Mr. Panagopoulos has stepped forward and done the right thing to preserve his interest in this license as a pledgee and as the owner of the real estate. And that is the consideration he's paid for this license. To punish him for his investment and interest in this license by revoking it is really not in the best interest of anyone.
Mr. Pellicles, it's not my intention to punish Mr. Panagopoulos. It's my intention to get the almost $10,000 that's owed by, is it MJ Corporation?
MJ Corporation
Then-
is as a liability of $10,000.
Right.
Well,
They are-
I wasn't done yet, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to check
We
the
have to pay
facts so
that?
the board would have that bit of information. We're owed approximately $9,700, I think, in back detailed. Now, if the board intends to proceed with the transfer, then I would certainly recommend to you that as a condition of the transfer, you require payment of that outstanding detail balance, because the corporation that owes it, MJ Holding, would be, I would suspect, utterly unable to pay it. The police chief is pursuing collection efforts in court. He's actually pursuing a criminal violation for failure to pay that. But I think it would be in everybody's best interest, if the board decides to transfer, to require payment of that. I also would request that the board consider asking our counsel's bill to be paid by the transferee or the transferor, because we've had to expend an extraordinary amount on the taxpayers' back because of the extremely unusual nature of this. Having said that, just a question. It's my understanding that MJ Holding has been evicted from the premises. Is that correct?
Correct.
So if MJ Holding is the possessor of the license, and if you just said that the license is being actively exercised, how can an evicted tenant exercise a license on premises from which they've been evicted?
We have entered into a license agreement with MJ, Michael and Tasha, exclusion of Spinizzola and Claproot, to manage the business there. And he's the original manager of record, and Lou, I gave you a copy of that license agreement. I don't think it's in their package.
Well, MJ is still the license holder of record.
Whose record?
MJ, even of your
Yeah.
record. MJ Holdings is the licensee of record.
So you're still in a contractual business relationship with MJ?
For very limited license purpose, yes.
So it's the case that the folks that the licensing authority believe are operating the license, as presented on this transfer of ownership amended, are in fact not the people currently exercising it?
Michael and Tasha is currently exercising the rights under the license as manager on the license.
What about Anasto, Spinizzola, and
Anastos,
and
no.
Juliet?
It's to best of my knowledge, Anastos, no. Spinizzola, no.
So let me ask this of special counsel. So, if a corporation wants to change its corporate offices, they have to come before the licensing authority, reveal that. The licensing authority has to find them proper and agree to the change of ownership so they can then exercise the license.
Correct.
But instead of doing that, there's been a sidebar agreement made which has different people operating the license with no knowledge of this licensing authority.
That seems to be correct.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board,
Record, is that correct?
I think under the circumstances that are being revealed here, to grant this transfer, while it puts Mr. Panagopoulos in a very unfortunate situation, and I will say to the board, he's been terrific in his dealings with the town, but frankly, the way this is spun out, I just don't know how we can responsibly recommend to you that you make a transfer without giving council a little more time to try to ascertain exactly what is going on here. This is to say that this is unusual would be a euphemism of epic proportion. This is the most unusual transaction I've ever heard of.
Let me just go back a little bit, just to something that bothered me. If you're putting this in context of this board taking a position to punish Mr. Panagopoulos, let me present this. We've got this packet of information. We've got more information just as we sat down today. And then we've got more information contesting the fact that you can even do what you're doing from business partners that may not even be business partners. This is a complete mess right now. So to sit there and say, if we want to punish somebody for doing that and he's trying to do something good, you put us in a very awkward situation. So I'd like to make a motion and end it here to put this, to take it under advisement for 2 more weeks. You guys get your act together, you guys work together, and come back in 2 weeks, because this is going to go nowhere right now.
James, we need to close the public. How do we do that? We need to...
Will it be
public
continued?
hearing. Continue the public hearing?
You'd have to continue it.
Mr. Chairman,
So
the
what do you
motion would
su-
be to continue the hearing to August
But in
next meeting.
7th. But in the meantime, are you asking for the 2 lawyers to work together, Lou and...
I think we'll authorize our attorney to be available to work it out. From there, you guys can figure it out. I can't authorize
Right. Oh,
I would
somebody
like
else's
to-
attorney.
I'd like to amend that motion a little bit before it's seconded, and I would like this discussion on it, that they agree to pay for our counsel during the whole process of trying to figure out this mess.
Yeah, but who's going to pay for it? I mean, see what we're
Whoever
saying, we're
wants the
not sure
license is
of
it-
who even...
Hey, it ain't going to be the town of Foxborough. By all rights, we should seize the license right now. By all rights. I think we're being, not even doing our duty by not seizing the license right now. That's my opinion. But out of fairness to the people that have booked weddings or such the facility for such other things, I think this is what the board should do, is take the license right now. And then I think the board should grant a temporary license on certain dates until we figure this mess out for the dates that they have booked for weddings or so. We can do temporary licensing. Where they've got a wedding, say, Friday and Saturday, this board can grant a 1-day liquor license or a 2-day liquor license. I say we seize the license right now, grant a couple of 1-day license for the next 2 weeks until we get this straight out. Because this town is liable.
So I think the problem is, who do we grant it to? Because what he's saying is a partnership that's not on the old corporate documents, it's not on the new corporate documents. It's something that we're hearing out for the first time, so if we give her temporary,
It's a different MJ Holdings. I think that's the point.
Right.
and
Well,
we have
if
nothing
you-
on record of who the new MJ Holding is.
Well, I don't want to see brides and grooms, crying either, guys, but, you're putting me in a spot here. This is bizarre.
I don't disagree with that.
So, we don't meet on the 31st then?
No.
Okay.
We're meeting 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
And that date would be August?
That would be
After
after...
August 1st.
It'll be after August 1st anyway, so
It reverts back to the town.
what do you...
August 7th.
So what happens, Lou?
Well, the parties agreed that we revert back to the town. The court's not going to come down and say, they're not going to enforce that unless the parties enforce it. If the parties attempt to enforce it, then it will revert back to the town. It's up to the parties.
It was an agreement by consent by both parties, so it can be amended by agreement of the parties.
It's not magical. It doesn't have to happen
Or by court.
unless the parties insist that it happen.
Is it still agreeable, though?
I don't know.
That's not the piece of paper I got tonight. Last minute. Go ahead.
If the license reverts back to the town, is that $10,000 liability still liable?
Oh, yeah.
We
No,
will,
to the extent there's a personal liability, it's collectible. You'd lose the leverage of enforcing
The
the
lo-
transfer.
the liability is that of MJ Holding Corporation, who required the details. We would continue to pursue that claim in criminal court. Whether or not we prevail, I don't know, but from the point of view of, is it owed, it's pretty much a slam dunk. And so would the court enforce that on our behalf? I suspect that will go well for us. Now, if at some point this transfer were to get worked out so that it could go forward, then that would be back on the table. Hopefully we would get the detail paid and the criminal charges would be dropped. Or if someone were to pay the $99,376.40, then of course we'd drop the criminal charges immediately, obviously.
Well, that,
That's separate.
treat this as a separate entity here. The thing is, Right now, we have an establishment operating without a liquor license. Do we not, Lou?
No, it has a license.
Without,
No,
what
it
do we
has a
have?
license.
MJ Holdings holds a liquor license.
And
Michael
Michael
Antasha is the
Antasha
manager,
is
and
still the
Michael Antasha
manager.
is on
Is on the
premises.
record.
As long as MJ Holdings is operating that license, somebody who has a license is operating the license.
Where-
Now, having said that, the officers and directors may not have been approved. That would be grounds for sanctions. But at least the licensee holds the license.
But Michael and Tasha has been approved as
One
as
of
an
them-
officer
one of them
and a
has been
shareholder.
approved. Correct.
Who's managing the license right now?
Who's the man- I don't know, who's the manager of
Yeah,
record?
of record.
Mike and Tasha.
He is, okay.
Okay.
manager
Is he
of
still working there during these
Yes,
functions?
he's there
On
every day.
premise.
Where's Mike and Tosh?
He's here tonight.
It may help if we open this up to public comment, because I know there's a number of parties in here.
Well, do we want to do that, or do
Or
we
we
want
can
the lawyers to?
go for 2 more weeks.
I think we should move to continue, like you said.
So if we move it for 2 more weeks, we may affect a function, but we're not going to affect whatever agreement that the two parties have, because you
Right.
can, between the two parties, can not activate that and push it back.
Right.
Correct.
But
So,
August 1st, it revoked. It's back to the town, is it not?
Not automatic.
Not automatic. That was a
For the
thing
parties to
between.
enforce it, we can go back to court. There's a number of options.
So you'll be
That
back on
consent
the
decree means
7th,
they
though,
could walk in
definitely.
here and say, look, we couldn't agree, here's the license.
Right.
If they don't do that, one party or the other could go to court and say, look, the other party won't agree, order the license turned in, and the court would probably do that.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to happen automatically.
On
Either
August.
party
Right.
to that litigation has an interest in having the license go
Unless
back to
a
the
party
town.
tries to enforce the agreement.
In the meantime, so you're still coming back to the 7th for
Yeah.
another meeting where you have violation after violation after violation, then you're asking us to transfer a license.
That's probably going to happen, yes.
So,
It would appear you can't undo the violations. Those
no,
those
they're
have
there.
happened.
Those are the,
but the question I have, though, right now, we're being informed by Attorney Placius, sorry, that the current holder is not, the ownership is not what is in front of us, but he doesn't represent the current owner, correct?
I do not represent MJ Holdings. I have no knowledge of what their current ownership, stock ownership is, or even what their officers.
But you have an agreement with them through your client to hold this license right now, so you must have some information of who owns this current license.
Correct, and that's based on a vote that they provided us saying that they're authorized to do this
So,
and to enter into this.
so that vote that
contract.
you are privy to and that you represent is a group that's not in front of us right now.
That's correct. And Lou, you have a copy of that vote.
Okay. So how do we allow a license to continue for 2 more weeks when they're in violation of at least the paperwork to have a valid license?
I'm sure counsel will corroborate, you can't revoke the license without due notice in a hearing. And it takes, I don't remember the time frame, so you can't take that action tonight. Now, you may recognize that as of tonight, the license exists in a condition of violation. And we might all sit right here and say, yep, that's the case. But you can't take any action on that until you've given notice and et cetera. So the soonest we could do anything about that would be in a couple of weeks anyways. Suggestion that kind of percolated through my head. What would happen if the transfer application were withdrawn and a change in corporate ownership application were filed, correcting and allowing the proper ownership as it currently exists, whatever it is, allowing the board to make a determination that the new ownership is in fact appropriate, albeit a little tongue-in-cheek because we know that things happened over the course of the past few years, but at least the board would now be blessing who the current ownership is. And then, and if a transfer was still desired, it could be filed after the board blesses the new corporate ownership. That at least would give some order to this, so at the time you would be asked to consider a transfer, you're not being asked to transfer to an entity which we've been told doesn't exist, essentially. I mean, this is,
But if that's the case, what we would be asked to do is to transfer it to, and if Intoshi is on the list, that's somebody that's been in violation for year after year.
And you might find that that is not a suitable person to hold this license, and you might deny that application, causing the corporation to have to seek other officers who might be more appropriate. I don't know. I'm not trying to suggest what you will do. I'm just trying to suggest a more orderly process in recognition of the fact that there's been self-admission of a very substantial violation over a long period of time that continues, and that has to get remedied somehow. And I don't think the remedy is to simply say, oh, we'll just go ahead and transfer it to someone new, and we'll just forget about this 12-year ongoing violation and pretend it didn't happen. I think that's just inappropriate. And were we so foolish as to do that, I think ABCC would shortstop it in a heartbeat. And we, as a licensing authority, would lose enormous credibility with an agency that exists in an oversight authority to us. And I think those are real issues there. So I only make the suggestion, Mr. Chairman, as food for thought for council, as maybe a more orderly way to go forward with this process. And if that's found to have some merit between the councils, that they may want to think very carefully about who the corporate officers are that they put before this board.
So are you going to withdraw your application right now? Is that what you're going to do? Or are we going to put this over for 2 weeks? Because
I should let him think about that.
Yeah,
Let's put it over
that's
2
gotta-
weeks. Then he can still withdraw it, but
If I have an
let him sort it out.
If I have an option to push it to have this hearing continued for 2 weeks, I'm in favor of that.
what was your motion?
May withdraw the
I
application.
didn't make a motion. I'm thinking out loud.
I made a motion to, but it wasn't seconded, so.
No, but I didn't. I thought James made one too. Could you repeat it, Linda?
I made a motion to continue this hearing until August 7th at 7:20.
Second.
Motion made to continue to the next hearing, August 7th, seconded. Any more discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, could the board be amenable to, if there is already another hearing with which 7:20 would
Yeah,
conflict?
I just
We have the authority to slip it 10 minutes or so either way. Thank you.
Yeah, as long as you give proper notice.
Do we want to close the hearing first before we make the motion?
No, because you continue.
No, we're
Continue, I'm sorry,
continuing
you're
it.
right, you're right. All right, so motion's been made to continue it till August 7th. It's been seconded. Any final discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? 5-0.
I do want to apologize
Thanks.
for characterizing the board as punishing Mr. Panagopoulos. It was inappropriate and spoken in the heat of argument.
Thank you.
Well, hopefully we can get to the bottom of it and put it to rest and,
That's our goal.
yeah.
And
Thanks.
I would think that some other things should be taken care of before you come back in front of this board.
Obviously. Do the right thing. Thank you for your time tonight.
Okay, so
We're
hold
behind,
this
so
stuff.
we're on a roll.
Which is right and which is wrong. This is the latest, right?
Stuff together here.
And an update.
All right, a couple pieces of information just to update the public and the board. The last town meeting, this board supported an article regarding the parking along the stadium areas. There's been several groups that have met, a committee and then a neighborhood group, and they're going to report back tomorrow at 7, and that's in this room at 7 p.m. To kind of there's some suggestions and thoughts that were made to try to form the basis of the standards that are going to set, they're going to be set up to enforce the bylaw of the 10 parking spaces. So that's coming up tomorrow night. Use of the common, there was an event this week which triggered some rethinking on if you want to use the Foxborough Common. There used to be a simple process and a form, and what I think Town Hall has found that there's sometimes more information needed, so the forms have been updated, so anyone that wants to use the town common for their purposes has to fill out forms, and the questions are about electricity and traffic and sanitary facilities and number of people, and then that gets routed to the building department and the fire department and the police and the town hall. So I think it was just successful, and I think you spoke at that this weekend. So moving forward, I think just because of those large crowds, it was a second attempt at looking at the form, so that's something new.
So will that form be available online so that organizations and such can go on and get it, or do they have to come up and get a copy of that?
I would imagine it's easy enough to put. It's in our packet. We could ask.
I think it'd
Randy to
be
put it
good,
on-
just
online.
because so many organizations are used to just kind of calling up and sending a note to Kevin to say, hey, we want to use it for the concerts on the Common, or, Santa's going to visit us, or whatever. So if there's a form, if you can make sure it's online, I think that would work for a lot of the organizations that are in the tradition of just sending you a letter saying, hey, we want to use it for whatever.
Sure.
So.
Happy to. It's a good idea.
Just reminding people, the concert on the Commons on Thursday nights, there's been a good crowd, and there's a lot of people from Foxborough Cable Access and
Cute
the
dogs up
JCs.
there, too, I'll tell you. You can bring your dogs. They're cute.
At the Common?
Yeah.
Really? So everyone bring their dogs to
Yeah.
the Common?
Yeah.
And bring them to the community garden, too, also. That's another good cause. I wanted to take the minute to just read a letter that we got, that the Selectmen got, and it kind of puts it in context. Having gone through our town manager's review, and his performance review, and then a salary review, and I don't think it's, I think it's the system, when you're doing people's review, a lot of the negatives come out, because you want to match them up to the list, so you feel obligated to come up with the negatives and the positives, and a lot of times the negatives gets in the paper, and we got a letter, the Selectmen got a letter from another board member. I just wanted to read it, kind of put it in context, and probably a little more fitting tonight since we're going into the goals, objectives with Kevin. It says, Board of Selectmen, in regards to Kevin Pecos, the town administrator. Recently, I became aware of Mr. Pecos' very public performance evaluation and wanted to offer my impression of a personal and very helpful recent interaction I experienced. I would like to commend Mr. Pecos for his swift and excellent assistance with two matters that arose for me. One a year ago and another more recent. In both cases, he was very helpful to me and timely in his responses, despite there being much on his town manager's plate to distract him. I would respectfully request that this be formally placed in his record for future reference. Perhaps more often we focus on the negatives than the positives that the people do for each other. We need to be sure that we also thank people sufficiently for the good they do. This is a thank you for Town Manager Kevin Pecos. And this was from Neil Forrester, an attorney, but also on the zoning board. So just to put a little bit in context, when it's easy to say negatives, but when there's something positive, I always find myself looking at you. I don't know
It's
why.
all right.
It's just
okay.
nice, so that will
It's
be
all
in your
right.
record, and I appreciate that. And I haven't spoken to Kevin before this, so didn't want to embarrass you, but that's what that's all about.
Thank you.
They're officially embarrassed.
And the last one,
Mr. Forrester proved that he is both a kind man as well as a very wise one. That was nice of him.
And a former member
Is he?
Yeah.
of the board.
Know that. Oh.
is he,
That was 1978, when some real
Yep.
controversy was around town.
I did send him a thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. That means a lot. Thanks.
And the last piece of the update, I wanted to add, over the last couple meetings, we've had meetings with the craft organization, and then we reached out to put a committee together. Linda Walsh, representing the Selectmen, Kevin Weinfeld, representing the Planning Board, Bill Early, representing Water and Sewer, and Dave Brown, representing Public at Large, being a member of the Zoning Board in the past and privy to a lot of the alcohol rules and regulations. So individually, each board met and agreed to meet as a committee. That committee is going to meet tomorrow, Linda?
Yes.
Wednesday here.
In Kevin's office.
Yep.
As far as I know, that's where we'll be. If a lot of people show up, then, we're going to have to cancel the meeting. Tomorrow night, it's basically just going to be that small group trying to figure out if we need some other members, what our goals and objectives are going to be. I've already gotten statements from folks, and I believe that this group is charged with trying to mend some fences and trying to reestablish the relationship. And I think that if the goal is to go backwards and challenge any of our past boards' decisions, whether we feel they were right, they were wrong, indifferent, that's not going to help this committee or help the boards. I think what we need to do is stay focused on the future, and because we've got such a quick turnaround time to help the water and sewer folks, I'd like to stay focused on that. So I'm hoping that's where it will go. So, tomorrow night, the craft organization will not be here. It will be just basically us AdCop group trying to get together and set down some goals and objectives and maybe a timeline of what needs to be done. So,
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone want to add to that? Or no? Okay. We're a little bit behind. Open meeting law, remote participation. That was something that came up a year or so ago, which allows the Board of Selectmen to make a decision for the other boards if they want to allow members of an elected board to participate from not in the room, whether it be from the sickbed or from traveling or wherever. So we had asked for a volunteer. Ginny had volunteered to reach out with Kevin's past efforts that reached out to all the different boards, the Board of Health, the Planning Board, Zoning Board, Disability Board, Veterans, and see what the flavor or the thought is that people wanted to participate or not. So I'll turn it over to Ginny if you wanted to take it from there.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'll just read my report. At the May 22nd, 2012 Board of Selectmen meeting, Chairman Jim DeVellis asked me to prepare a report in regard to remote participation. The intent of the report is to provide the Board of Selectmen with information in order to make an informed decision on the question of remote participation using input from the town's boards and commissions. Some background. In 2011, the Attorney General's Regulations 940 CMR 29.10 permitted remote participation by public entities, provided that the regulation is adopted by the Chief Executive Officer, which in our case is the Board of Selectmen. As a courtesy, the Board of Selectmen in 2011 asked Town Manager Kevin Pecos to contact boards and commissions to gather information in regard to the desire of the boards and commissions to use this means of conducting meetings when and if the following factors make a member's physical attendance unreasonably difficult. A, personal illness, B, personal disability, C, emergency, D, military service, or E, geographic distance. The acceptable means of remote participation included telephone, internet, satellite-enabled audio or video conferencing, or any other technology that enabled the remote participant and all persons present at the meeting location to be clearly audible to one another. Text messaging, instant messaging, email, and web chat without audio were not acceptable methods of remote participation. An acceptable procedure for conducting a remote participation meeting was also included in the regulation. Input. According to the file in regard to this matter kept in the Selectman's office, there were 8 email responses. Conservation Commission was split, 3 no, 3 unsure, 1 absent. Disability Committee said yes. School Committee was unsure. Assessors was split, 2 yes, 1 unsure. Library trustees was split, 1 yes, 5 no. Water and sewer was split, 1 yes, 2 no. Planning board said yes with concerns, and the Board of Health said maybe with caveats. With only one group that was outright in favor of remote participation, the following were concerns presented by the other respondents. How good will the technology be? Can each board develop its own policy? Possibility of abuse. Loss of personal interaction, logistics, costs, training, record keeping. Attendance is part of the job. Would consider a year's trial period. Reliability and cost of the equipment. Need for an IT person at every meeting to maintain equipment during the meeting and the associated cost. Need for video/audio ability, not just audio. Definition of geographic distance. This should be for routine meetings only, not for posted public hearing. And finally, can the general public also participate remotely by phone to call in with questions or comments? If so, Who is responsible for the equipment for the public? These were the concerns of the boards and commissions. So I just put it together, and the information in this report was compiled for the benefit of the Board of Selectmen, which, as the chief executive authority, will be voting on the question of adopting the regulation to allow remote participation in the town of Foxborough. The regulation entitled 940 CMR 29.10, Remote Participation, is attached. The Board of Selectmen received a copy of this report prior to the Selectmen's meeting for review purpose only and not for the purpose of pre-meeting discussion among its members, which would be a violation of the open meeting law. So respectfully submitted, Ginny Capola, Selectman.
Thank you, Ginny. Appreciate that. Well done. So it's been kicking around for a while. Open it up for discussion.
My only thought is, it sounds like it's too hard to get a whole handle on. My only concern, I would vote no, but my only concern is that if we had somebody like Dan Iagata, who's on a committee, is there some kind of amendment or something that we could make to our open meeting law that disabled folks or, someone who can't get to the meeting because of disability, there must be some kind of an act or something that we could get to. I think those are the only people that I'm really concerned about. I'm not concerned about, if people say, well, I'm on vacation or whatever. You know what the job is when you sign up for whatever committee you're on. So, but someone in like Dan Iagata and others like him, that's my only thought.
I like the fact that the public weighed in. Basically, well, I've often said sorry, Linda, many times the question is come up, can you vote for town meeting but not have to go? Everybody's bringing up the internet. And a lot more people would vote from home and everything else, and the technology's not there, whatever. But it's true, if you're a sitting board member, you're sitting here, you have to face the public. They can't not come here and face you. They can't promote from the home. That one hit me pretty good, so I would probably be in favor of not accepting it.
Any more discussion?
Well, my thoughts were, before we had technology, there were provisions for if people were absent from meetings, you had associate members on who could fill in for the absent regular member. And also my feeling is, attendance is part of the job. If you feel that because of business or vacation, you travel a lot, then that you won't be able to attend the meetings, then you shouldn't run for the board. And there are other positions or committees or something in town that attendance is less critical because of the number of participants. So I would tend to vote against remote participation.
I'll be voting against it also. I think the personal interaction is critical as we deal with these issues. It's good to be able to talk face to face. I think the dynamic sitting in this room is very different from the dynamic that one observes when you're watching this from home, and so I would not want to give that up.
And James, one more thing. Whenever there's something really critical coming up with the entire board needs to be here, we've moved meetings for that. If you contact the chairman and say, I'm not going to be here that day, we'd move it so the full board's attending, and when it comes to crucial situations. So I just thought I'd add that too.
Any other comment? A motion?
Motion not to accept remote participation.
Second.
Any more discussion?
Just, Kevin, were you going to answer me about that? About the...
Yeah, just to note, if there were a member of any board, committee, or commission in the town who, for whatever reason, had a disability and was not able to fully participate, the law actually requires us to make full accommodation for them anyways, so that they can participate directly in the meeting, not remotely. In other words, actually be present at the meeting. So that would include things like architectural barriers, assistive hearing devices, things like that.
Sign
So,
language.
right, so
All right.
this is separate from
I
that.
just didn't know, right, that was, I mean, I agreed with Lorraine about, there's something to be said about body language, and I'm huge on that. So I wasn't really in favor of it, but I just wanted to see that it protected not people that were going on vacation or whatever, but people with disabilities that, I mean, Dan, I used to, tell me about it a lot, like that it's difficult for him to get, in here. He's got to kind of wait for someone to open the door and, things like that. So if, we had folks like that, that's good to know then.
And also, if at some point a board, committee, or commission member were to, once they're already in office, were to find themselves through accident or injury to be in a condition where they couldn't physically attend the meeting and we couldn't make it accommodation, you could always revisit this subject at a later date.
Yeah.
So you're not barred from doing it
Okay.
at a later, for some reason that were to happen.
Okay, so a motion was made, was seconded. Before we go for a vote, I keep forgetting to look out to the audience. Is there anyone in the audience that wanted to add anything on this particular topic? All right, all those in favor to not accept the new state provisions? Aye. 5.
Lorraine.
We will so notify all boards and committees and commissions.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Jimmy. Okay. Town manager's goals and objectives. What this is about is, a few years ago, we came up with a list of goals and objectives, and these are important because it guides our work on guiding the town, but it also is a measuring stick for Kevin's performance. Basically, these are marching orders, and these are goals that we work with him to perform, and at the end of the year, we go back to revisit on a performance review. So we had asked Lorraine volunteered to pull everybody's goals and objectives, new ones, or taking ones off the list from last year, and then kind of combining it, and then also prioritizing it. So, Lorraine, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. On the handout that you have, you'll see a few of these are highlighted as a starting point for the review. Kevin took a look at these, and there's one that's highlighted darker than the others on your copy. Comply with contract terms, town manager, finance director, establish annual goals, performance reviews. The dark highlight is representing a goal that involves the town manager directly. The next highlighted ones, the lighter highlighted ones, are combination, or are just Board of Selectmen only. And then all the others, I'm sorry, the dark one was town manager and Board of Selectmen. The lighter highlighted ones were just Board of Selectmen, and all the other listed ones, Kevin had thought that they really do pertain to his area of accountability. So everyone went through and submitted their goals and objectives for the year. And with the rankings, 1 through 5, 5 being the highest priority, 1 being the lowest priority. So putting all the rankings in order, we've come up with this order of focus. So the top goals and objectives involve working with water and sewer and others to develop an effective sewer strategy, expanding the program, supporting water and sewer efforts to maximize revenue productivity from signage Route 1. So essentially, those came out at the top of the list and really, again, support the focus of the master planning process that's going on and Linda's efforts with the ad hoc committee. Hold department heads responsible for employee actions. I thought perhaps we could have a little discussion about each of these. I think this was one, Mark, that you may have submitted. Hold department heads. Does that ring a bell to you? Third one down, hold department heads responsible for employee actions.
Mm-hmm.
I thought maybe if you wanted to discuss it a little bit so that everybody understood.
Well, it seems like everybody appreciated that one.
Yeah.
Basically, I was always told, sorry, Linda,
Thanks.
when you're a department head, boss, private industry or in municipalities, you're responsible for people beneath you. If the business is failing, it's not always just their fault, it's the department head's fault. You got to be, a great man always told me, if you can't find the goodness in an employee to what he's good at, and you feel as a boss. That's what I mean by that. You need to put people's abilities and put them out there. If you're a department head, find their best abilities and use them to the best advantage of the town and the department. Don't put them at something they can fail at because you know they can fail at it, or you just don't realize they can fail at it. Everybody has, responsibilities, and that's what I'm saying with that. It's very easy to spend a little time and work harder at that. I thought one of the best things, and I'll openly say it, I was very skeptical about it, was when Kevin brought the water and sewer department together with the public, highway. Very skeptical, but then it was kind of a great thing that he did. He brought, Roger Hill here. Roger works vigorously and hard, but he also retained our old highway DPW director, Bob Swanson, as an engineer, and they worked together as a team. So he made that team work because he saw that, wait, still need an engineer. I've got Bob Swanson here, so we're going to bring him from here to here. Roger saw that too. He brought a guy in here that recognized it. So good managers find good people what they need to be doing it. Hope I'm not being redundant.
So then, in that coming under the category of town manager, and you would continue working on that, like as you hire the human resources director?
Yeah, that's...
Sure, as Mark says, the hallmark of a manager is managing people and resources. I mean, that's what a manager is. So we all agreed clearly from the ratings that this is one of the most important things for me to be doing with the department heads and the department heads to be doing with their people. Where it gets a little tricky is this. I do occasionally, it's not a pleasant part of the job, but it's a necessary one. You hear me give a lot of praise to department heads. You don't hear me be critical of them, and that's because I don't ever do that in public. But I assure you I do it occasionally, sometimes formally, sometimes informally. The tricky part is I can't tell you about that because the charter prohibits, the charter creates a Strong Manager Act, I call it the charter, because creates a clear prohibition between the board getting involved in the day-to-day stuff, including employee discipline and whatnot, and the manager's role to do it. So a lot of times you don't know when I'm holding people accountable because I can't tell you I've done this because they did that. So I don't know how to fix that. I don't know how I can communicate to you because there's two sides of the coin in holding people accountable. It's giving them praise that they're due and good merit reviews, and it's also holding them accountable for mistakes. Unfortunately, this is the part I can't share with you because, that appears to be what the charter says, and I've asked Labor Council, and he said, yep, that's absolutely the case. Occasionally, the board gets drawn into one of those through litigation, but in the normal course of events, I can't share that with you. So there's a little bit of tension there, and I don't know how to resolve that particular thing. So I don't have an easy solution for that.
I thought, Kevin, that, and this is the way it was handled before, things do change, that if this is a disciplinary action taken against an employee, that you can advise us in executive section, not share it with the public at that point in time.
Leo told me I am absolutely forbidden because the open meeting law says that if we're going to talk about an employee, we have to advise them of their right to counsel. We have to advise them to have that discussion about them in public or in private, their choice. And frankly, were I to notify you that I've, for instance, given a department head a written reprimand, The only way I can do that is to go through the open meeting law, which you're under, I'm not. Remember, you're under the open meeting law, I'm not. So you'd have to give the employee all those procedural rights. So here's where it would fold out. We'd be sitting here with the employees sitting here. I'd be telling you that I reprimanded them for whatever. Could be in public, could be in private. But certainly if it's in private, they're going to feel the need to contest that and say, well, I didn't do anything wrong. And we're having a full evidentiary hearing. I mean, that's why Labor Council says can't do that. Because I have to have that evidentiary hearing in order to determine did they do something wrong and to decide on the punishment. So I've already done that in private, and I've protected that employee from any public knowledge, which is their right. They have a right to a confidential evaluation. So there doesn't seem to be any way to notify the board. So I can't. So we haven't been able to come up with any way that I can share that with you. I will tell you, I do it all the time. I mean, it's not a isolated event. It happens all the time. Remember, the town manager is the only authority that can dismiss or suspend an employee other than a civil service employee where the chief has some rights. So I end up doing that for all employees other than reprimands where the department heads handle that. So because we've got 200 plus employees, I do a fair amount of that sort of stuff. But I can't tell you what I'm doing. All I can tell you is I'm doing it all the time.
Okay.
I'm sorry that
That's appreciated, but there's 30 of them, so I don't.
Yeah, right.
So I don't know how to help
Got
you
it.
with that one. I understand what you're getting at. I just don't know how to do it, frankly. So.
The next item is better understanding for all of the Strong Town Manager Act. Question, need to change or abolish. That was one that I had volunteered to follow up on. I have the name of the town contact info for the town manager, former town manager of Brookline, and also an attorney who specializes in labor.
Could I make a suggestion just to make streamline this for you?
Yep.
Here's what I hoped you would do tonight. Agree that the ones in yellow are in fact the boards.
Okay.
Tell me if there's something in particular you want me to do to support you in that. I mean, obviously I do whatever it is you need doing, but if there's something, material that you want to see appear in my goals, then let me know. And then once you tell me about the yellow ones, then what I would do is I would take all the rest and I would put some steps. In other words, give a little more meat on the bones here. These are the bones. Now I'm going to take me a couple of weeks, but I'll give you back some meat on the bones. And then you can look at that, I think, and probably have a little better discussion, because rather than you sit here and go through all these one by one and talk about them, I think I got a pretty good idea of what you want, because most of these have been around for a while. And I can give you some steps that gives you more, and you can basically look at it and say, Kev, yep, you got that one nailed, or hey, this one over here we want to see a little different. It'll just save you some time.
Yeah. Can I make a suggestion? Because there was another topic that kind of is the umbrella of this. You started to do town manager reports monthly, and they've fallen behind in January, February. Can you do a town manager's report for the end of August that includes these items? And it doesn't have to be detailed, but at least everything's out. We can look at it. It'll be on the website, and that way the town understands what you're going to be doing over the next year.
Yep. Here's what Lorraine and I talked about, because I frankly asked for some help, because that town manager report that I gave, it's a great idea, but it's unrealistic. I started writing those when you first hired me, because, that first couple of months you're in a new job, you kind of wander around going, you don't know what to do, so you get lots of time on your hands. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. In order for me to write that report for you, which is probably shortest one would be 3 pages, the longest might be 5, I actually have to take an entire day and sit down with my calendar from the prior month, go through all the different things, update. And frankly, what ends up happening is I don't ever find the day to do that, because I can spend a day writing a report, or I can spend a day getting more work done. So I never do it. So I said to Lorraine, I said, I really need some help. Do you have a suggestion? And she came up with what I thought was a great suggestion, which, if it meets with the board's approval, I'll implement. And that was, once I do these goals, and then put steps underneath them. We just create another field. And then every month, I write some notes in that field about what have I done on that goal for the month.
That's
You know,
basically
and
what
then
you
down
did
the bottom-
before, didn't you, Kevin?
I'm sorry?
You were doing that before for
I
us.
was, and then I went to the much, much more lengthy report.
Yeah.
And the lengthy one, it's great information, but the problem is, it's always late.
Yeah.
It takes too long to
No,
write.
just the comment line on
This
these,
has
I think
streamlined
it
it.
worked well.
And then what I could do for events that aren't really in the goals, like new things are happening, because that happens, I have a comment section below where I put down some notes about things that aren't in the goals, but that I want you to be aware of. That's one idea. The other idea is something that I've done in a couple of towns that work pretty good. And Jim, you kind of picked up on it when you became chairman. You put your chairman's report. Well, I've very often done a town manager report right on the agenda. Now, that report, because it's every other week, is much briefer. And what I do is I just put, could be in this format again, and I would give it to you, and then it would actually be an agenda item. And then that would be the board's opportunity to ask about things and say, okay, Kev, I see you did this month. Tell us more about that, or whatever it is you want to ask. That way, the board is getting more information. I'm getting it done in a timely manner, because if it's putting it on this form, I can do it fast. And you're also communicating to the public what it is their manager and the departments are up to. So that might be a better system if you like that.
It all works for me.
I like the idea of the agenda item.
So every 2
Give a
weeks, a
quick
5-minute update?
Well, it really would just be the report, and it would really be your opportunity to ask questions as opposed to my opportunity to
present,
to
yeah.
talk more, which you don't need me doing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Everyone
good.
okay with that?
Yeah.
Sounds good. So,
So are you okay with the yellow ones being really the board's goals as opposed to mine, per se? Because, for instance, a better understanding of the Strong Manager Act, I would be uncomfortable
Right. Yeah. you would-
trying
yeah.
to extol the virtues
No,
of it.
yeah,
You're better served by bringing in folks from the outside.
And I think that's what we had decided, that it was going to be outside of your
Right,
purview.
so that's not really my goal, it's really your goal. And then if you look at the rest, I think you see that there are things that you talked about you want to do as opposed to things you want me to do for you. That's the distinction I tried to arrive at. And the green one, I'm sorry, I can't read it
that
to
was
save my
both of us.
life.
Comply with contract terms, town manager, finance director, establish annual goals and performance review, so that was a joint.
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, the reason that's both is because you do my review, I do the department head's review, so it's a shared responsibility, but that would get expressed in the sub parts to it, the steps or whatever.
I think that makes sense. The way that
So-
Lorraine had it broken up.
So do you want to maybe look at these and consider if there are any that anyone wants to volunteer for in the yellow, or in the highlighted, not the dark highlighted, the lighter highlighted color there? Maybe we can communicate that to Jim. And
Do you have one that's got yellow and green on it?
Lorraine updated it.
Oh, okay,
And-
So it's black, it's a shade of gray, but
okay.
So,
So
we
I
could
would
do
take,
that.
I would take the yellow ones off, take all the others, and give you
Okay.
back something in a couple of weeks that's more detailed. And then maybe the board will decide what it wants to do with the yellow ones, because those are yours.
okay.
Fair enough.
Great.
yeah, and then we can kind of look at those and see if somebody wants to take things on and have that discussion.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Lorraine, for putting that
Thanks.
together. Okay, water and sewer, are you still around? Want to come up to the table? Thanks. And this agenda item is the DPW reorganization. In our packet, there is, complete with the reorganizational chart and some backup information from Roger Hill on the organization model. And I know we all know you, but just for the people at home, could you just introduce yourself and who you represent?
Roger Hill, DPW Director. Bill Early from the Water and Sewer Commission.
Meg Stanton, Water and Sewer.
Richard Pacello, Water and Sewer.
Thanks, and thanks for being patient. We're a little behind schedule. I appreciate that. So this is a memo to Kevin from Roger, so who wants to present it?
I can do it. One of the first goals and objectives that were set down for me when I came on board was to come up with a way to reorganize two disparate departments into one and create a DPW. And now that I've been here 8 months and had a chance to get my feet on the ground and work on what I needed to work on, I have come up with a plan to do it. I presented it to the Water and Sewer Commission about a month ago, and they liked it, and they voted unanimously to support it. And then after I got that done, I presented it to Kevin. There's a few little things that remain to be done after we're finished, but fundamentally, the plan that you see in the table of organization that you see is what I came up with that I believe works best for the town of Foxborough at the present time. That doesn't mean it stays that way forever. Things can change. Priorities change. But right now we've got some serious priorities and some areas that require like really intense work to be done, and I've kind of made slots in that T&O to be able to accomplish those things. So that's pretty much the package.
Good. That's it.
Have a good evening.
Feel free to go. The rest of you I have questions for. You're not really going to leave, are you?
Oh, yeah, give Justin on the board.
Foxborough's, you guys elected him, so. I'm embarrassed for that. I'm sorry to say, but that I wanted a discussion, and what I was going to say is I reached out to a couple of you guys, and I got your input from this, and you guys were a little skeptical at the beginning because of the integrity of the water system, which was a little different than what we envisioned, and it sounds like everything came together, and you guys are very excited about this.
Actually, I don't think we were skeptical at the beginning. I think we have been always in favor of this.
No, I'm not putting it together, but
Yeah.
not skeptical of where was the water going to be in the picture. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying this is a good
Well, let's
lead
not talk
into-
about the history of it. We are happy with it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, yes.
To further that, I know my own point of view, I was somewhat skeptical about the original organization as it was immediately proposed, did not per se have a water operations manager, water superintendent. And I think myself as well as, I'm not going to speak for the Water and Sewer Board, but I believe it was our opinion that there needed to be somebody running the department, holding the proper licenses. And so skepticism on that front, yeah, there was a little bit, but I think the way it's shaken out, I'm very happy.
That's true. We had several discussions with Kevin about how it should look. But I mean, it fell out the way we expected in the end, and I think even if it hadn't started that way, Roger would have had to push it that way anyway.
Yeah. And I think even just driving around town, seeing the work that people are doing that typically you wouldn't expect them to be doing because it was a different department. You know, my life going up and down Payson and North Street and all that stuff, it seems like everyone has come together and there's some really neat economic, concise things happening because of this reorganization.
We're a little behind right now, but that's because the Chapter 90 money hasn't come through yet from the state. And I'm just setting up the PMS now on a workstation. And as soon as I get that done, I'm going to set up priorities for roads. And I'll be back in front of you probably in mid to late August to explain another. I think it's a really exciting opportunity to do something great. But, you know, I'll let the board decide that at that time.
Kevin? Yep.
So, although this is not exactly what we had originally proposed, I think what's happened is with the missing ingredient hired, and that's the DPW director, and Roger having had time to work and sort of figure out what he wanted to see for a reorg, and I work with the Water Sewer Commission on the component that they have direct input. What's happened over the time now is that they've all agreed by consensus, and I certainly support it, to present this as the final plan. And like I say, it's a little different than what we originally envisioned, but on the other hand, as Mark was mentioning earlier tonight, I think what has been produced has been a very, very strengthful organization. It's a really terrific management team they've got down there, and I think we've got the build-out now for future expansion and produce some real good work and save the taxpayers a lot of money. So, having said that, and thank you to Roger for doing a terrific job putting this all together, and thank you to the Water Sewer Commission, who have been, as Bill said, from the get-go, back in 2010, they have been outstanding partners in trying to figure out how to make this happen and work in a way that everybody would embrace. So, the charter requires that the manager forward to the board any reorganization plans. Now, in this case, it's a combined hybrid effort, so I guess we're all collectively endorsing this to your attention. For the reorganization to happen, two things need to occur. First, you must adopt, amend, or reject. Assuming you adopt it, with or without amendment, then the next stage is it has to go to town meeting for approval with a formal charter change. So it's a two-step process. One can happen here tonight. The other doesn't happen until the next available town meeting. So now it's before you. And the two boards have actually voted reorgs before, so we're kind of shelving those. This is the new one, and this is the final one, I think.
So I know that when we went to town meeting, we kind of were doing like a test run for Roger's position itself.
Right.
But this would encompass Roger as the overall director of Public Works.
Exactly.
And I also know, and I couldn't find it, we had like a budget that we presented of what the cost savings was going to be because of it. I think that it's going to be important at some point to show us, more important for the public to see, what the final will be as far as cost savings, and maybe it's not all cost savings, maybe it's skills and time and things like that. So if there's some way that we can come up with a diagram or something, or
that's easy enough. We can.
You know what I'm saying, Roger?
I think you'll see that because very shortly we're going to start working on the 2013 annual budget, and it'll show quite a bit. There's some other things that won't show because they haven't happened yet, but they are on the horizon, and if we pull them off, it's really going to mean some substantial savings.
We've already shed 2 clerical positions and consolidated, and once we get the trailer, I don't know what you're calling it, but the administration
modular building,
right? And Roger can take his whole administrative staff and managers and put them all in one place. Then you'll see the final fruition of merging the staff and shedding some positions by making people more productive. Frankly, where that might be in the $60,000 or $70,000 savings range, that really is small potatoes compared to what this is going to do, as Roger points out in the memo, in the area of large-scale coordination. As right now, road projects, water projects, sewer projects, they're all getting coordinated now. That's the first time they've been really completely, thoroughly integrated. When Roger gets his pavement management system, and then he gets all the GIS overlays in place that they're working on, everything's going to be in there. So we'll never, ever, ever have a situation where we duplicate money or effort without proper coordination. That won't happen again. And that's going to be a major step forward, which will produce savings at huge levels. Hard to say exactly what, because what we're saying is we're not going to make those mistakes anymore. So it's kind of, it's sort of like saying, here's a mistake we didn't make, see what we save, because we're not going to make those mistakes.
But that's going backwards, and we don't go backwards anymore.
That's what I'm trying hard not to do.
I just think that it's important for AdCom to see, incorporate things that Roger has given us in this memo, as well as, sell it to the public at large. That's all I'm saying. I'm not.
We will have to do exactly that when we propose the charter change at town meeting to affect this, assuming the board is in favor of it. We'll have to do exactly that in order to convince them why we want to do this.
Right.
And that will depend heavily on the support of the Water Sewer Commission, Board of Selectmen, and ultimately AdCom as well, in order to, have town meeting endorse it and say, you all say it's a good thing, must be a good thing.
I might say it's kind of difficult to look for $7.5 million to build an IMA and say you're going to save a whole bunch of money, because there are things that mean a lot to the future of the town that they have to decide. I can't decide those things for the town. The town has to decide those things
It's
for
okay.
themselves.
I already asked Sharon to look for a grant for 7.5, so I
There you
think
go.
we'll look at
Okay. But there are some things that we can really point to already. If you read the whole memo, you'll see Bob Swanson moved over to a different set of responsibilities that captures the essence of his abilities rather than trying to put him into something that didn't. Has saved the town a ton of money. And another one would be when I bring in the PMS, I'm going to propose something that probably has never been proposed to the town before, that we can do with the meals money to bring our road service rating in the 90s, so that all we have to do in the future is maintain.
And with that tantalizing tidbit, he won't reveal any more.
No more.
Until it's ready.
So we need do we need a motion this evening?
Yeah, you need a formal motion recorded in the minutes to adopt the plan as presented, and then this document will actually get attached to the minutes.
Okay.
And just so I'm clear, so once we get through that, then it starts the process. It's still has to go through advisory committee, gets in the form of warrant language, and then the town meeting votes for that.
Yep.
Then it's going to go to Boston, right?
Say again?
Then they have Boston as a sign-off too, don't they?
No, actually, all that has to happen additionally, the appointing authority to implement this has to shift so that the director has appointing authority in order to actually implement this. Because right now, Water Sewer Commission is the appointing authority, and that's the big shift. We got to make it so that they actually work for the director, as opposed to right now it's kind of an informal process.
But that doesn't take anything away from the water and sewer.
No, they remain, they go from being the appointing authority for the people, for the employees, but they remain the policy board with respect to water sewer policy. They are, in essence, they become, with respect to water policy, the same as you are. I mean, the relationship is identical. Right now, under the charter, they're actually the appointing authority for employees, although they very graciously have pretty much ceded that authority. And the way it works is, when it's the department head, we work together. When it's not the department head, Roger, for all of the employees, he essentially interviews them, appoints them. I have to sign the slip, but he essentially has the authority. And that's the way we work it with all departments. But that's only by cooperation. That's not as a matter of actual chartered right. And that's the final step to give the director the real authority that he needs.
And I apologize if I missed this, but did your board vote for this yet? You already did, and that's done. Okay.
Maybe 2 or 3 meetings ago. 2 meetings ago, yeah.
Someone had a question? Jenny?
Yeah, on the chat, on one page, you list in the boxes, there's names, and then there's just positions. Are those new positions?
No.
This is all existing positions. We couldn't get names and position titles on the same page because it couldn't fit it on 8.5
So there's
so I had to do it on 2.
You won't be hiring any new people except...
Can't hire people until I get town meeting approval of the budget. I don't have a budget.
Okay, but what, all right, say you have the authority, once DPW is put together. So then there will be some more hires, I mean, you anticipating it right away, or No?
Going
Okay.
forward, I may propose, like I did in the 2012 budget,
Yeah.
to add a laborer to Tree and Park. I may propose to add another laborer to Tree
Yeah.
and Park. Or I may propose to add a technician to assist Bob Swanson. But
Yeah.
those decisions can't be made by me right now.
I think the only major change you might see, and I don't know whether it'll come next year or the year after, but we will propose it eventually, is the central maintenance department, which this board has actually tasked me to do. It was in my goals last year. We agreed to delete it because it just wasn't time to do it. But I think Roger and I have had a discussion, and we certainly agree. We've got a tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer investment in our public buildings, and we don't have anybody managing them. I mean, in the private sector, absolutely unheard of. But public sector, it's a common mistake. So having a building maintenance division under the director is something that I think you can, well, like I say, you've tasked me to explore that, and we will be doing that. But that's a change that would come in the future as part of a budget proposal. But we're not there yet. But that, I think, is the only major change that you'd see proposed to this org chart. Other than that, it could be an employee here or there, and that's part of the regular budget process.
I see more of a shift in the tasks that occur because of implementation of technologies and things like that, rather than adding employees. That's especially true in the water and sewer field because we're changing technology real fast in that area, and that means that existing employees may shift to other types of duties that are just as necessary and not getting done, but now they will. A good example would be, we've gone in through a major meter upgrade program in the system. Once that's done, that's going to free up employees, and there's lots of AC pipe in that system that needs to be replaced, and that's another duty that can be undertaken at that time. And there's a lot of those examples, but I won't go into all of them, but at some time we can probably have a full discussion on it if the board would like to.
Okay. I don't want to go backwards, but when I opened this, let me just clarify something. I wasn't saying you guys had concerns at the beginning. You had input, and as I look at this chart, it was about the water technicians and the licensing and stuff. So all your input was vetted through this process. It changed a little bit, but I didn't want to give the impression that you were
No, we
had
didn't
concerns
take,
about
no,
it. Yeah.
you can take it that way. In fact, Rich actually flagged it better. I think one of your original diagrams did not show a head to the water and sewer side.
Right.
Okay. And that didn't personally bother me at the time because I felt that we were working with too many unknowns. The first unknown we had to fill was the position that Roger's sitting in. Once we filled that, we would know how we needed to fill the next position. Mm-hmm. Now, that was speaking for myself. Other members felt we should have something more identified as we moved ahead. As it turns out, the person we hired in the block that kind of heads what looks like our department is a water operations manager, and Roger actually fills the sewer responsibilities.
And Bob.
I see, okay.
And Bob Swanson.
Yeah, along with Bob Swanson.
The water superintendent's job is a full-time plus job.
Yeah.
I can tell you that, and it's going to always be that way. DEP is so burdened with daily reports and everything else that we have to do that it's never going to be able to be a multiple duty position. It's going to be a water superintendent, and that's it.
So we certainly had some discussions with Kevin, and as things worked out, we are quite happy with the result, the way we are right now.
So anyone from the audience that want to do comment? So is there a motion regarding acceptance to move forward with the reorganization into the DPW.
Motion to approve the reorganization of the DPW is out as presented by Roger Hill and the Water and Sewer Commissioners.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Before we leave, could I flag an item that Kevin actually brought up?
Sure.
Behaving like a lawyer, saying it was already brought up. So. He didn't mention the issue of moving, he didn't say it directly, but moving to a different facility.
Okay.
Not to sound like I'm whining, but we sit in that corner down there. We are desperate for space. We are desperate to put things, to get that operation more efficient. Roger has Barbara from the Highway Department coming up 2 days a week, I believe, helping out in that office and going back. That's difficult for both the highway side and for our side. It doesn't do as much as all of us would like. We've discussed many times, and I know you folks have struggled with what to do about the town hall here. Okay, I personally hate to see us move out of the town hall or move away from the town hall environment. From a citizen's perspective, from a DPW perspective, I don't care if we're located down at the DPW building down in Elm Street. That's fine. But that's basically what we're talking about doing, constructing a building down there, and we're exploring that option right now. Now, my fellow board members are more practical about this than I am, and they're ready to move ahead with that exploration. I'm reluctantly being dragged along, okay, because I'd like to see us stay with the town hall, okay? I know you folks struggle with the issue. Let me just flag it to you that, you know, moving the town hall issue along is an important thing for all of us. And I personally would like to see us stay here for the sake of the townspeople. Stay
We'll
here
have to
in
amend the
town hall.
plans again.
So I've had my little speech, but I think it's an important issue that we all need to work on. And whether we stay with the town hall for the sake of the townspeople or we move to a different location, I think is one that's going to perhaps have a solution that gets imposed because we have to spend some money and do something to help the DPW get more efficient if the town hall doesn't move ahead. Some solution for the town hall, whether it's a rented space somewhere else or whatever.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more. I'll give you another example. I met with Kevin and our new town council, and he suggested having town council office hours, which was a great idea where people can come in. But the fact that, and so that's why it got squished, because then you're talking about coming into here, leaving, and we don't even have an extra desk. So that issue is going to come to a head sooner than later. So
Okay, let's move on.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thank Michael as well if you see him.
Thanks, Jansen.
Yeah, thanks for coming by, Michael.
All right, Kevin, you got 5 minutes.
I don't need,
Only 20 minutes.
I don't need 30
Oh,
seconds.
kidding.
Here's my 30 seconds. I would welcome your participation in collective bargaining, but it's in the category of be careful what you wish for. You can come, and I'll even give you the Excedrin for this headache that you are sure to get, because I think it'd be wonderful education for the board to see just how difficult it is. I just would propose the following considerations for you. It can only be one board member in any given negotiation. There are 4 negotiations that'll start. There's one police going on right now. We've had a couple meetings because they're working 2 weeks now without a contract. Their contract expires June 30. Fire is good through next year. We'll open that one soon. Library's good through next year. We'll open it soon. And DPW is good through next year. We'll open that soon. So all of them will probably start after Labor Day. I don't think we'll do it in the summer. So what I would suggest is one of you, if you want, serve on those bargaining teams.
Wouldn't it be one per, why wouldn't everybody get a shot at one, like police, fire, DPW, library?
Yeah,
not
that's
same-
what I'm saying.
same.
One could take police, one could take fire, one could take DPW. Couple of caveats. They are daytime bargaining sessions, and I can't change that because, they're done by the bargaining teams and the professionals and they have to be during the workday. That's the requirement. So I can't change that. And we can't schedule, what we do is we schedule it, and then everybody shows up, and then once we're in one, then everybody pulls out their schedules and we schedule the next one. But in order to get you plugged in, I can't coordinate your schedule because, to the extent it's already scheduled, I'm stuck with it. But only one is already scheduled. The other 3 bargainings haven't even started yet, so we'd be able to coordinate with you.
Well, another board member, let's say again, I was doing police, and I couldn't make it, and Lorraine could. She could.
You can do that if you want. I wouldn't recommend it, Mark, only because you'll totally lose the continuity of it. I mean, you can do it if you want. I don't have any objection. But
I think it's more. Go ahead. Sorry.
I actually have reservations about the board participating in that process. I think it's something that the human resources director, the town manager, the finance officer, those are the frontline bargainers in most situations that I've encountered. And I think, for us to be removed one step so that we can, as a group, discuss what is being brought to us by those face-to-face people. I think one of us participating, we would be dragged into the emotion, the difficult negotiation process that these things are, and I just have a reservation that I'm not sure that that's really, in terms of the outcome of the negotiation, I feel like maybe we would do better to be working in a guidance role to the negotiators as opposed to actively participating in that process.
Well, you make a valid point, because if a board member participates, they have to participate as an observer. They cannot be, they can't
dialogue.
Right, there's no dialogue. They can't express their personal opinion, because here's the problem. If one of you comes into those meetings and expresses your personal opinion about negotiating, and that opinion doesn't reflect the majority will of the board, you're now influencing a negotiation in a totally inappropriate way, which is why I come to you before I start negotiating and say, what's your goals? What do you want done? We bring in, the department head, the chief, we have a discussion, and then I give you periodic updates, and then the agreement has to come back to you for adoption at the end, where you get to determine, okay, did we accomplish your goals or not? So, sorry I forgot that, but yes.
What would help me would be for us to have in writing as this progresses, because I think in the past we've had these conversations, we've had these discussions, and I think sometimes we, by not seeing the finer points of the negotiation, may not recognize until too late in the process that there is a concern that gets raised after the fact, and so maybe if there was just a more organized approach in terms of how we do that.
I think if you have, as an observer, you'd be able to capture that.
I think it's an educational process. Right. What I was looking forward to seeing how it transpired, right, and then not say a word and just get the experience, so you kind of understand what the departments go through, the unions going through, the attorneys. It gives you more education when you're dealing in the room with guidance for Kevin. That what everybody's going to be in a different room with a different union. I myself would like to observe. I don't plan on getting involved at all.
The benefit to observing, to me, and I think to the board, is that it gives the board, sometimes when I come back to you with a package, you might have a tendency, and it's perfectly understandable, to say, what are you, out of your mind? But if you see where it started, right, and you see what we accomplished at the end, there's a whole lot more appreciation for just how hard this is, particularly because of the laws in Massachusetts, which totally stack the deck against management. That's just the case. So it's a wonderful education for the board to see how that works, and that's why when you initially said this a few weeks ago, I said, oh, no, this is going to be a nightmare. And then I started to think about it. I talked to Leo, and I said, yeah, I think this would be not a bad idea. I'll predict for you that after however many of you are interested, after you do it once, you won't want to do it again. When I say do it, I mean go through a whole bargaining session. I mean a contract, which might be 5 meetings, it might be 20 meetings, because I'm going to tell you, it's of all the things I do, it's the one that gives me the headache fastest of all, and pretty much any town manager will tell you that. It's tense, it's very hard, and it's the hardest thing we do, I think. So, and I think but I think it's good for the board to have some appreciation for that. So,
we're not obligated to go to every meeting, Kevin. We're just going to observe a couple. We don't have to go to the 5 and 20.
and that's fine too. That's fine too. If you want to just come to a couple and observe, that's okay. I think that's great. It's just it's got to be within certain confines, because the union's got to agree to this too. I have to agree to who they bring, and they've got to agree to who I bring. So, I've discussed it with a couple of the bargaining units. Let me just say they were a little cool to the idea, but on the other hand, technically we have a right to say, look, this is the way it's going to be. I think they're just concerned to sort of, well, what's this all about? So, we have to give them the courtesy and the respect to explain that. But like I say, provided it's with those conditions, I welcome it. I think it'd be great to have a couple of you there seeing just how tough this is.
Well, I think you can look at it as, like, when you're on the advisory committee, you become a liaison to a certain board or commission. One person is assigned to that. And that's the way I would look at it. It's just as the liaison from the, observing liaison from the Board of Selectmen. Just sitting there and just observing.
Okay.
I think one of the benefits is at the end, after the process has gone back and forth, whether it's 1 meeting or 10 meetings, when we're sitting at the table and there's a disagreement, that the Board of Selectmen sees how far or how narrow that disagreement is, because we have context where if we're not there, we're listening to you, and then we're listening to the other leader, and we're taking your word or not taking your word, or second-guessing. That kind of gets eliminated when we can hear it directly. But I think it is important that we sit there and not interfere and not give our opinions and not participate other than listening.
And that's beneficial to both sides,
Yep.
just being a silent observer.
It's a good learning experience when I apply for Kevin's job down the road,
Now you're really talking crazy.
Just lost the vote on this one. Jeez. All right, I don't think we need to do a formal vote on that, but is that the direction that the board wants to go in?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think we have to stay
And
with one group. If two want to go to this, two want to go to that.
If you could just give me a call, drop me an email, whatever, let me know which areas you're interested in, then, hopefully it's not everybody wants to do the same one. But if you could just let me know. Remember, you got DPW, police, fire, library. Those are the 4 groups I bargain with. So if you could just let me know, and then I'll get back to you and let you know when we're setting up.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, action items. We had the several meeting minutes, June 26th, June 28th, and July 10th.
Yeah, I know.
Take June 26th meeting minutes.
I had just a typo. Page 2, Pauline. First big paragraph. 7 lines up. It's DAN.
Yeah, add that too.
Oh, Dan. Damn.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, yeah, I saw that, but too late.
That's great.
Page 3, and just a typo, 835 streetlights, second line, should say he. Page 4, second paragraph, sentence where it says Lorraine Brew felt like the board is penalizing a person for a decision that had already been made.
Oh, wait a minute, which,
I would,
second paragraph?
second paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences up from the bottom there.
Oh, okay.
I would
Oh,
just
yeah.
strike that.
You want that whole sentence
Just strike
out?
it, yeah.
Okay.
That was all I had.
Just on the front page, on page 1, on July, the second paragraph up from the bottom, on July 10th, there would be a joint meeting with the school committee for discussion on the post office building. That just didn't make sense to me.
I had this. It was an
So-
appointment of an interim member. That's what it
Yeah,
was,
I don't think it had anything to do, it was an interim member
It was
of the school
discussion.
committee.
And was the discussion on what?
It's marked here.
Oh.
We weren't talking about the post office. We
With
were
the
getting
school
together with
committee.
the school committee for an interim meeting.
Right.
I move to accept the minutes of the 26th as amended.
Second?
More discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. The next meeting minutes are June 28th.
That was the joint board of
That was a
land board.
different-
And we didn't,
That was the one with the planning board,
Yeah.
and I was
Pauline
not there.
wasn't there, no?
I was there for, not there for the 10th.
I didn't have any problems with it, so I move that we accept it.
Second.
Second is,
Second by Lorraine.
all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and I'm going to abstain since I was not at that meeting. July 10th meeting minutes. Comments?
Lorraine?
Just one typo. Page 4, Pauline. Or- July 10.
Okay, page 4. Okay.
Very first word,
Flush.
typo, flush, F-L-U.
Flush. Okay.
Move to accept as amended.
Motion made to accept, seconded.
Second?
Comments? All set, all those in favor? 5-0. Pauline, thank you.
The only question I had on the second one, James, for the 5K road race, is there a Patriots game in town September 23rd?
No, it says right on it, there is no home game on the 23rd.
But I do think if you approve this, you got to make it subject to the two chiefs' approval, because I
Yeah, I
don't
didn't see
see,
anything.
I don't
yeah.
see either one of
Real
them
good,
on it
these
yet.
motions.
Yeah, and I got a lot of phone calls about the last road race.
Blocking the road?
Oof.
Yeah.
Like, when are you going to open
Already
this
had the
road?
discussion. I fielded some of the calls myself. I
Yeah.
brought the chief in.
Okay.
And I said, Ed, we're going to have to figure out how to keep one lane open, and he said he understands completely, so
Yeah.
if
That
that's
was
not
just-
what's proposed, that
Right.
is what it will have to morph into, because people are prohibited from getting in and out of their homes for hours on end, and
Yeah.
that's not acceptable.
I was driving around literally for an hour and a half trying to
We-
figure out a way to get back to
We
my
get
house
lots
because
of
it was
reports.
well after.
I was the guy blocking the road.
It was well like after the fact.
Yeah,
So
I pledged to every single caller.
yeah.
I couldn't change it because it was just a few
Right,
days
right,
before.
right.
But it will not happen again. No road race will block both lanes ever again.
Yeah.
If we can't figure out a way to not do that, then I'm going to recommend you not approve the road race. It simply is not responsible conduct to tell people they can't get into their homes or
Right,
out.
right.
There's plenty of road races held in plenty of places outside of the Boston Marathon. I don't know any roads being blocked, prohibitively to traffic. I've
Well,
never heard of it.
if they're going to say that the road is totally going to be closed, make sure that they list all of the roads that are going to be closed, because I don't believe that they did on this other one.
We're not going to close
That-
roads.
Right, okay, all right.
It's just not even an
yeah,
option.
Okay. So I move that we approve the 5K road race for the Hockomock YMCA to be held on Sunday, September 3rd from 9 to noon, subject to the both of the chiefs'
Approved.
approvals.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Any further comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
And there's an appointment for election workers to the one-year term expiring on August 30th, 2013.
I move that we appoint the election workers listed for a one-year term expiring on August 30th, 2013.
Motion made, seconded.
Second.
Seconded by Mark. More discussion? All those in favor? Aye. 5-0, Pauline. Warrant of state primary election to be held on Thursday, September 6, 2012.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And the last action item, town council appointment. This is, at our last meeting, we had talked about I was going to sit down with Kevin and Richard Gellerman, come up with a council appointment. Dick Gellerman had emailed everybody. We had gone back and forth a couple times on comments. And I think it's important just to read some of the highlights. This is a contract for the Gellerman and Cabral LLC. Basically, hand in hand with what the RFP said on a lot of items, the billable rate is $145 per hour. If it's paralegal, it's down to $50 an hour. Generally, he's not charging for out-of-pocket expenses unless they're extraordinary, and then he'll let us know. We did ask him to increase his malpractice insurance up to $3 million, which he did in this letter. We did have a discussion that we do have a policy on where his time is spent, and he acknowledges in this letter that he will get prior authorization before he spends any time on any of the items in accordance with our policy. He also acknowledges that he does work for a board of 5 people, and sometimes we had a long discussion on this, we're elected, we're going to ask questions, he is going to entertain discussing things with us, he is not going to bill it to us unless it's authorized. So if Jenny calls up and needs some advice or talks to him about an issue or a concern, he's going to do it as under his contract, but not charge us. He is not going to take direction from any of the selectmen other than what's in accordance to our policy. So we had a lot of good discussion on that. The duration of this agreement, he understands, is at the sole discretion of the board. But it is what we put in the RFP was a minimum of 3 consecutive one-year terms. So that's written down here. And then so we went back and forth. He signed it. It doesn't require our signature under the Strong Town Managers Act. Kevin signs it. But the start date would be August 1st. And before he starts, he is or has been reaching out to our past town council to get up to speed on some of the issues. And he was already up to speed on a lot of stuff. He took notes on the happenings of Foxborough, so I was very comfortable with that meeting that he's already got some good working knowledge. And then one other thing, nothing to do with this contract, but I know going into this, the discussion, and Mark brought it up initially, do we send out an RFP for the town council? And it's always uncomfortable. Why is somebody asking? Is he not happy? At some point, I think it would serve the board well if we talked about that every 3 years automatically, or every 2 years automatically, or 4 years, that we entertain an RFP. That way it's not on the shoulders of one person at the Board of Selectmen. It's not politically charged. It's a matter of routine. So 3 years where this contract is up in 3 years, maybe make that a policy that we renew it or entertain discussing for an RFP for a council. That way it's not on the shoulders of performance right now. So something I just wanted to throw out, but not vote on it tonight.
On everything, I agree.
So this, I think we need to do a formal vote on the contract, so Kevin can sign it before August 1st, correct?
Move that we approve the appointment of Dick Gellerman as counsel for 3 consecutive one-year terms, starting August 1st, 2012.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, 0.
It's 3 consecutive.
3 years.
One term.
Motion to adjourn.
Can I just say something? Saturday, there was a memorial service for Dave Risch, who had been our conservation agent for the town of Foxborough. And there were present and past members of the Conservation Commission were there. I went, former town clerk Marie Crumans was there. And it was very nice. We met the family. I'd never met Mrs. Risch before. It was just a very nice memorial service. And I don't know if people understand the role that Dave played as the Conservation Commissioner. During his tenure, that was when the town of Foxborough purchased a lot of the conservation land that we own today. And during the master plan, the comments were, Foxborough is so lucky that we have such open space, conservation land and all that. And a good reason we do that is because of the Conservation Commission's work, Dave, with the Planning Board and the Board of Selectmen in years past. So I just wanted to make a note of the accomplishments of Dave. He was a good guy.
Well said. Thank you. Okay, long meeting. Motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. Good night.
Stuff to sign in there?
Thank you, Frank, from Foxborough Cable.